Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast, Becoming Your Own VIP, Mind, Body, and Soul. I'm your host, Rebecca McCants, and let's get to it. So today I want to talk about forgiveness and what it means on your path to becoming better, whether it's through spiritual awakening, whether it's through life's trials and tribulations, and recognizing that there's things within you that you're holding resentments for, bitterness for, anger, grudges, sadness, grief, shame, guilt, regret. All these things that we carry and hold on to that slowly eats away at us in all ways, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and yes, physically. It starts tearing us down. And these things we've held on to, a lot of us, as children, for the times there are things we couldn't control, things we didn't understand, and didn't even have the tools and equipment to process it. And as adults, well, we buried it, so why deal with it? And how it impacts our lives without us even knowing it. And quite frankly, that impacts us again on all those areas. And with us being on unstable foundation, then those relationships that get hurt along the way, because deep down inside we're hurting ourselves, whether that's your intellect, how you process things within the world, how you see things, whether you see through a negative lens or a positive lens, whether you see through a lens full of hate and fear, or if you're open and to love and life. Forgiveness, I find, it's not just about the person, place, or thing. It's about us too that we need to forgive. And so hard is it for us to look in the mirror and see those things that we need to take accountability for, and in general, to forgive. And forgiveness is very important on our path to healing, on our path to choosing to change and be better. And, one of those things is like the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And then it states, for if ye forgive men their trespasses, for your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So, again, forgiveness is key. But like I said, again, it is also a key to your healing. It's a key to releasing the poison, the beliefs and the habits and the fears and the worries that you created that built walls within you, and quite frankly won't allow you to move further. I talk about we're sitting in darkness and it's time to pull out of our light. Well, when that little kid is in a dark corner, holding on to themselves, crying, hurt, scared, finding love in all the wrong places, not allowing love in, believing one thing because that's the way it always has been, thinking it's you and it's not you. All these things. And that you have to look at and that you have to forgive. Now, I know there's a lot of people say, well, I'm not forgiven. They should have never did this and they should have never done that. But guess what? They were doing the best they could too. You don't know their whole story. And even if they told you that story, they didn't tell you the scars that were left within them. They didn't say, how this impacted me. And we weren't taught to say, well, by their behavior, I see their scars. Now, maybe we'll pick that up and we'll see that, but with judgment, we judge that person based off of their behavior. Well, they should have known better. They're how old or whatever. But deep down inside, it's their inner child. Like I said, once that scar happened, whatever time in that life that occurred, you become emotionally stunted and you build bricks of pain within you. Those bricks, those pains have never been taken down. That emotional stunting had never matured into a full understanding on how to now handle things more maturely. And through my journey of releasing blame of everyone and releasing blame of myself, because again, Jesus, like on the cross, he could have held grudges. He could have held resentment, but instead he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Not a near one of us knows what we do until it's brought to the light. What we were doing was our everyday automatic pilot, living life, thinking that is the way it is. But that is not the way it is, and that is not who you are. That's not the way they are. Their wounds and their darkness and that scared child within them is what you're hearing. Because they're fine 1 minute, right? Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden something happened. It triggered them. And all of a sudden they're acting like someone you don't know. Whether it is a child or Boo Boo the Fool. Whatever it is. Now all of a sudden they have something within them you've never seen before. That is their pain. Lashing out because it just got touched. It just got unearthed. It just got revealed. It happened so fast. And because of the fact it's not been healed, it's literally a trigger. It's literally a reaction, being very reactive to what just happened, and it explodes. And like I said before, these things can be very destructive to things you truly love and cherish. How many times has an emotional outburst that happened so fast destroy and transform what you love, and it no longer is the same? Some people need a day or two. Some people just say, nope, I'm not dealing with that, because of whatever they have within may not be strong enough to deal with someone else's because they're dealing with theirs. It could be anything. A job, up and out. And I told you about the masculine and feminine energies. If they're wounded, how they're not able to come into balance within themselves. So you definitely can't be the person to help someone else. That masculine energy is ready to run while the feminine is trying to look at me. And if both are unhealed, the masculine is going to go out and look for his healing in the outer world. And, by getting whatever is pleasing to him. And the feminine is going to be looking in the outworld and grasping onto anybody who's going to feel that security, that emotional reassurance that everything's safe. creating people pleasing and jealousy and all these things, because they're just trying so hard to hold on to whatever scrape of security, because their masculine isn't formulated within them to provide that safety, security, that reassurance, and that love and support that inner feminine needs. But when you come into balance, the masculine comes home, the feminine supports the masculine supports the feminine, and you are one both spiritually and earthly. So to forgive is vital, not for the other person as much as it is for you. However, there is a lot of things that healing and by forgiving a person on the outer world, because again, there are again truly people that are dark. I'm not even going to go there with y'all, but there are some people that were dark because of wounds, not because of intentional hurt, but some of it, a lot of it is unintentional hurt, wounds that they did not know was in them or how to handle. So I released blame of everyone. And then I had to release blame of myself. The burdens I carried, the shame and the guilt and the regrets, the losses. Man, and you know, that stuff is not easy to face within yourself. But you definitely can't not move forward in the way you want, holding on to any bitterness or anything within your heart. Because like I told you, we build walls and we build all this hurt up in our heart, and it creates a void in there. It creates an emptiness in there that no one can fill, even though you want them to. You want people to come in and fill your heart up and love, and because you're so willing to love and you are that love. Even our kids and stuff, there's not a fullness of love they receive because we're hurt. There's not a fullness of love that we can even give ourselves because we're hurt. There's a void in us, a place that needs to be filled, and that darkness needs to leave. So with that being said, we're not even able to allow God in if we have that darkness, you know? It's, you can't serve two masters is what the Bible talks about, like with double-mindedness. So you're either serving the dark or you're serving the light. If you want to be in anxiety, hate, and whatever other cycle you're currently in, then that's one thing. But if you're willing to change, to allow light in, you've got to allow it in. You got to take down your walls, those burdens that you've carried, the things that are destroying your mental health, your physical health, your psychological well-being, your emotional well-being, your emotional stability, your spirituality, who you are. You're not going to hear that whisper within you telling you to do something that is loving and kind because the darkness is speaking louder. Like, no, I don't need to do that for so-and-so, or why should I do that? They never did this for me, this, me, blah, blah, blah. Because you're so closed off. And, you know, sometimes talking to people, you know, they're resistant to hearing that because they're still in their darkness. And like I told you, nothing I can say right now is going to be relevant to you unless you're ready to hear, ready to heal, ready to stop the cycles of pain. So like I said, I wasn't necessarily ready to stop the pain and the cycle before either, because I didn't realize I was even in that. I just thought it was the way it was. So with that being said, I was trying a lot of things to bring forgiveness into my life, because again, forgiveness is not the easiest thing. I think that's one of the biggest mountains that need to be moved within our lives. And so with that being said, I'm going to tell you what I found, what I've practiced, and the biggest thing is understanding that you are to have patience, faith, and consistency within these things, and a genuine want to forgive. And even if it's hard to forgive that person, forgive the emotions that person created. You know what I'm saying? Of the pain, the fear, the abandonment, the rejection, the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental, emotional abuse, the spiritual abuse, whatever that is, the emotions that were used to create that pain within you. So there is something that's called the Ho'oponopono prayer, and I'm going to spell that. It's Ho'oponopono. This originated in Hawaii, and it's just a prayer that you repeat over and over again. Now, I had placed my hands over my heart whenever I said this, but this is the prayer, and it's very simple. It's just 4 lines. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now, I will also ask that you look up the Ho'oponopono prayer, and it will give you a history as to why this prayer is powerful. And I also say over and over again, bring what's unknown into the known. A lot of people reject and fear doing things because they don't know. It just sounds silly, and it's messing with their vanity. It's messing with their pride. And it's messing with the system they've already created for themselves. So in order to create change and break cycles within your life, again, we were born of sin. So the things that we've done over and over again, from what we learned from a parenthood as well up until life, if it's creating you pain, that is a cycle that you've purposely allowed yourself to continue to go into unknowingly or knowingly. But I know I was unknowingly until I recognized things kept happening. And then I had to look at myself. I'm like, look, I'm the common denominator here. So what cycles am I repeating? Whether that's through your habits, your behaviors, your beliefs, your patterns, your traits. These things you need to look at within yourself on why it's creating these things. And so this prayer, it not only is for you, but it also is for the other person. And if you recognize that it didn't say, I forgive Jim Bean. It doesn't say I'm forgiving Sarah Beth or whoever else, just saying out names just without, going there. But, it's not saying a specific person. It literally is, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's it. And that is a prayer that I like because, again, if you read the story, it's just putting the place of forgiveness within your heart, period, for everything and everyone. But also it does forgive you for the roles and the pieces that you've played within any relationship you've had, whether that is with a person, whether that is your partner, your family members, your finances, how you've treated your body, how you've treated absolutely anything, and how you created a pattern of unhealthy cycles in your life, and how it's hurt not only other people, but how it's hurt yourself, and now you're asking for forgiveness. Okay? So, there's times people's bodies betray them and they don't know why. And then there's some deep-seated subconscious anger and resentment towards their body, a self-hate towards yourself. And, you may not even know it. And there may be, obviously something from your childhood or other relationships. And this just covers everything. Okay, so then obviously the Serenity Prayer. I told you that was a blessing for me as well, which is God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because, again, this is, God, I can't help the other person or the other situation. What has been done, unfortunately. I am wanting forgiveness, but I can't make the other person forgive me or anything else. You can't bring back your finances or anything else. There's just certain things that God has to take care of that's outside of your control. And I made a podcast of things that are in your control. And, those things that you can change about yourself. Those times when, you have regrets on how you've handled and conducted yourself. Well, guess what? How can you now become better, do better? These are the things that you can control, how you show up from here on out. My teachers of the past, my finances, my health, my partners, my family, all of these teachers in life, the lessons I've learned, both positive and negative. How did I play a part in it? How can I improve upon it? And that's where forgiveness is also gratitude, because without you going through those things, you wouldn't have known what faults were within you. You would not have known what strengths are within you. And also with some of those things, the tools that you developed that are healthy. Like I remember, if your body shuts down, where I had to learn how to adapt and how to utilize other senses or schedule things a little bit better, or to learn more about my body and what my body's telling me. I would not have known that if I didn't go through that. And so I am a little bit more prepared. I am understanding how to listen to my body. I am understanding how to treat myself. Or now I know that this is valued in a relationship, to have a healthy relationship versus a toxic relationship, where maybe before all I knew was toxicity, And now you can take those pieces and build healthy, loving patterns, things that you can control, and forgive the rest. Because we're all learning. Absolutely every single one of us is learning. Where a child is learning how to eat, talk, walk. Well, that process never stops. We're learning how to interact with one another. We're learning how to love another person. We're learning how to raise up a child, when ourselves as a child didn't, really have all the tools and things to help us raise that child. We're winging absolutely everything. And the only way we're being told, no, that's wrong, is through the consequences. Or yes, that's right, is through those consequences. And we're like, oh, okay, we did great there. Oh, that's not something I should have did. Ooh. And, not all the times will those consequences be so wonderful. I remember, like, if maybe you do something quite simple, but the consequences was tremendous. And that's an ow moment, and even as adults, whether that's in a relationship or finances, I misjudged it here. And to me, it was small, but the consequence was huge, a big ripple effect that not even impacted just that right now moment, but years later. So these are the things that we need to forgive ourselves for, and really understand we are learning. If you truly look back at everything you've done as a student in school, with your friends, with your partners, with your children, whatever the situation is, if you look back at something that happened, what were you learning? What did you not have the tool at that time to help you at that moment, and you just did the best you could? Everything that happens to you in every minute, every now moment is you learning and having a choice. There's a fork in the road, and you're going to choose based off of what you know, how you've been able to handle things. And if you're hurting and in pain, you might make a choice based off of that hurt, that pain, that fear. And when we make choices out of fear, which we didn't maybe not know, it's not going to have a great consequence, because you're fearful of losing something. You're fearful of a conflict. You're fearful of being hurt. But at the same time, we made a choice that unfortunately created that hurt, that conflict, right? And then we're afraid to make another decision. And then everything from there on becomes fear-based, anger-based, reactional-based, versus when you just breathe and you have a little bit of understanding and tools, and you feel a little bit more safe within yourself. You feel safe within the relationship to make a better choice. Then maybe you can make this choice. And that choice leads to a great choice, you know, a great consequence. And you're like, oh, yay. And you move forward. But that's a fork in the road with everything we do. No matter how even healed you are, you still might make a wrong choice. And instead of allowing it to grow poison within you, forgive yourself right then and there. Don't hold it in like we used to. You know, I've learned that a lot of us were taught to hold on to it. But you know that saying of walk it out. Breathe it out. Let it go right then and there. If it's a moment of sorrow, a moment of grief, a moment of something that was a lot to deal with at that moment, don't spend more than a day. Don't spend more than 2 days. Don't spend more than 3 days. You know what I'm saying? At some point, depending on the situation, you know, it's a lot. But whatever you're doing, instead of bearing it, instead of allowing it to control you, allow yourself to release it. Sit with it, breathe through it, cry through it. But allow the emotion to go. I will get into a little bit more about trauma and releasing trauma later. But don't hold on to it anymore. Don't resist it. Don't stuff it down. Face what you're feeling. And if it takes you back to a past scenario, thank you. Because really a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, is that we deal with right now that creates grief and stuff is keys to go back and heal that original trauma. So if it takes you back somewhere where you've never wanted to go back to, utilize that opportunity. Be strong and courageous. Be brave. And allow that emotion to work through itself. Now, don't relive it. You don't need to relive the story because you've already survived that story. But it's the emotions it created that is surfacing the memory. And the only way your body can talk to you and tell you where this emotion came from is through the image. Okay. So I know for me, I had a lot of things that I relived mentally and thought I had to relive that story. Again, a cycle it creates. So you just sit through the emotion, allow it to breathe. But again, these sayings, these prayers to forgive at that moment in time too, is something you didn't have an opportunity to do before. So these areas allows you to forgive. Forgive yourself for any weak moments that you had. Forgive yourself for the times you felt hopeless or powerless or things out of your control and someone took advantage of that. Whatever the situation is, that's your chance to forgive. The times when you were the person that oppressed someone, the times when you're the one who abused someone verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, this is your opportunity to go back and forgive yourself. You know? It's not to relive it because you've grown from it. I hope you've grown from it. You know, it's at that moment I was in pain. I was in reaction and this happened and I held a guilt. I held a shame. I held a regret. I held a bitterness. I held a grudge. These things that created a darkness within us. For us to heal, we got to let it go. All right. So next, things you can control, release it. Let it go. There is another prayer that I had found. Now, this is a Buddhist prayer. Now, I know I talk about, Christianity and everything like that. I know that. But at the same time, God's created absolutely everything. But to me, it was off of what resonated. So the Ho'oponopono prayer, that resonated with me. And this next prayer resonated with me because of these words. Okay, so this is the Buddhist prayer of forgiveness. Because sometimes also, let me explain, sometimes we don't have the right words. Sometimes we don't know what to say. And if you're so deep or at the very beginning of a stage, I found these words helped give a little bit more as to what I was looking to release within myself. Okay, so it says, if I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusions, I forgive them. And if there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle myself, judge, or be unkind to myself through my own confusion, I forgive myself. So this Buddhist forgiveness prayer, or the correct verbiage is Buddhist prayer forgiveness, and you can Google this as well to gain a little bit of history on it. But this one covered other people. It included, myself, and it covered literally everything that needed to be said in the most briefest of forms. Because again, it's not about reliving it. It's about whether they knew or didn't know they were doing it, or whether I knew I was doing it or not knowing I was doing it. It's asking me to forgive them, but it's also a prayer that they forgive me. And it's a prayer that I forgive myself for the things I've done to myself. So it covered three things all in this one prayer. It's forgiving anyone who has harmed me, either knowingly or unknowingly, and anyone that I have harmed, either knowingly or unknowingly, and how I forgive myself for the times when I've created negative self-talk towards myself. And, that prayer was pretty powerful. So you have the Lord's Prayer, you have Ho'oponopono, I'm not even going to try to say that right again, and you have the Buddhist prayer. But then the truth of the matter is saying what's in your heart. Whether that is, writing out those emotions, getting to the root of the emotions that created that pain. Whether that is going all the way back into, your parental wounds, generational wounds, because again, your mother and father learned that from their mother and father, and their mother and father learned it from their mother and father. It's generational. And sometimes that forgiveness needs to go all the way back. And for those who believe in past lives, you don't know what you've committed in the past and that carried in now. And that's something else you can be forgiven, because cycles continue. And look back, it's like the movie Groundhog Day. You're continually on a cycle and on repeat until the day you chose to do something different. And, in my deepest of darkness, those two prayers helped me center myself, allowed me to open the door to forgiveness where it just wasn't as easy. Whether that was to forgive myself or to forgive others. Those prayers just allowed where I didn't have words to speak for me, until I was able to open myself up to being real with myself and really saying what was in my heart. And there's some people that say writing out letters, even if you don't give it to someone, those things that were unsaid, those things that are on your heart, clear it out so that forgiveness becomes even more important factor for you, because just saying you forgive someone isn't necessarily always the way to do it. Sometimes you may need to do extra clearing, which is saying those unspoken things to someone. And if they're not able to hear those things, writing out a letter and allowing your heart to empty, allowing you to face the things that you weren't able to say before. There's going to be some tears that need to be shed. Those feelings that come up that are so uncomfortable. Like I said, the masculine doesn't want to deal with it. And the feminine, she kind of didn't want to either, really. I mean, she addressed it, but not in a healthy way. So now to become healthy, to become strong, those emotions do need to be faced. And you need to transfer in from a negative state into a positive state so that you are no longer acting a fool, but you are the king and queen that you are. You're no longer weak. You are strong. And guess what? Even while you're strong, you're still going to be weak because there's a duality that's always going to be present. Just because you go through these steps of cleansing and healing, there's going to be stages where that might come back up because there may be some deep-rooted stuff that is still there. And if you're still thinking of a current person versus going back further, then there's going to be some further digging that needs to be done until you get to that original emotion, that original root, to be pulled back up and really have inner healing. There is a form of spiritual stuff with this too, that again is very interesting. But, it starts in your heart and your mind in order to heal your body and your soul. Your body stores everything. Your mind stores everything. Your soul stores everything. Your heart stores everything. Energetically, you are bottled up with a lot of darkness. And it's about clearing away the pieces. And it takes a little bit to put your pieces back together. Because every time you received a trauma, you fragmented, you've disassociated, you've lost pieces of you. And when we're lost and don't know what to do, it's because there's things within us that we need to heal and make these things come back into ourselves. So that our mind's not in one place, our body's not in one place, our heart's not in one place, our soul's not in one place, and they're all fighting one another. They talk about multiple personality disorders and all this stuff. Well, really, you're just fragmented. You're all over the place. You're unhealed. And your mind has all these voices going on because it's got a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff that just creates noise that you have to filter out, that you've got to clear out. And a lot of that is same within your heart that I didn't realize too. Your heart carries all that stuff too. It carries the grief, it carries the anger, it carries the bitterness, it carries the anger, where I thought it was just love. No, that you as you're healing, man, you'll have grief come out of nowhere from your heart. You'll have anger come out of your heart, and you'll look at your heart like, oh, I thought you were supposed to be sweet and kind and loving. And you see the two-facedness in your heart, and you see the two-facedness in your mind. And it's you clearing it. And it's the same thing within your body and your soul. Like I said, your mind, it could be healthy or it could be diseased. Your heart, it could be healthy or diseased. Your body, it could be healthy or diseased. Your soul, it could be healthy or diseased. You can have disorder or order. You can have dis-ease or ease. You can have building yourself up and constructing your life, or you can be tearing yourself down and destroying it. It's your duality. It is your choice. It's when you're ready to make a change. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop there with forgiveness, because like I said, that's a tough topic. It takes time, especially the understanding of what and why you've done things and what and why people have done things. And when you recognize that truly that every single body, mostly every single body in your life, were doing the best they could. They just handled things the best they knew how. Whether that was running, whether that was being extra needy, whether that was not providing full security and stability, it's because those things weren't grounded in them. And when you recognize healing and what you have to go through to heal, And if they hadn't even done that process, you start having that compassion and empathy for them. You have that compassion and empathy for yourself. And you start praying and wanting the best for everyone, because it's not as easy as you would like to think to forgive. Not as easy to heal and reverse the habits and the beliefs, the vanity behind things, and the pride and the stubbornness behind things. And also, in some aspects, to reintroduce yourself to spirituality that holds you accountable for becoming and doing better. But that's where I'm saying, when you're ready, you're ready. And that's when you'll be able to seek these changes and be able to see and reflect and understand and open that door for forgiveness within yourself and others. So, again, it took me a long time to learn. So I'm not even going to keep on elaborating on that, but I pray that you all have a blessed day, and I hope this helps and resonated with someone. Thank you. Have a good day.